Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the Semaphore Community Event for May 2024. Here we're going to hear from us. We're going to talk to you about some community events and how you can be involved in these. You can also share your thoughts on our customer network forum, which is under NDA, and hopefully that will spark some conversation, some ideas, and contribute to the work that you're doing with the Semaphore platform. We really need your help. This is a new program for us for this year for Semaphore, and we want to share your stories, challenges, and successes. We want to know how long these events should last for you, how often you would like these events. Currently, we have them once a quarter, but if you'd like them more frequently, please do let us know. What content would you like us to cover? Would it be demos? Would it be guest speakers? Things like that. Include talking about guest speakers, should I say? Who are the experts that you would like to hear from? Who are the people that are putting out some interesting ideas or new content that you would like us to present to you? And as always, feel free to ask questions as we go through the event. Today's agenda, we've got some new release features that will take you your knowledge management practices to the next level. We've got some strategies for evolving your data architecture for trustworthy generative AI. And we've got a demo highlighting the power of the platform's side panel widgets. And we've got an introduction to the ideation portal and a review of some of the suggested features that we've got already in development. And then finally, where we'll be and how you can meet us up this year in person and or virtually. If you've got any questions, please feel free to use the side panel widget on there to ask them. We'll try and get through to as many as we can at the end of our session. But if we don't manage to get through to your question, don't worry, we'll make sure to reach out to you to get that answer. Short disclaimer, you can pause here if you're viewing on demand, which should go live shortly. But this is really for informational purposes and not really sort of concrete product roadmap discussions. Some of the information in here can be actively in development, or there could be discussions around what could be coming in the future. Again, pause here if you want to learn more. So without that, with that, we'll hand over to Keith Atkins, the Semaphore product owner, and he's going to take us through the new Semaphore release features and new things that are coming into the platform. Keith, it's over to you.
Thank you for that, Philip. I'm going to be talking about what's coming up in the next versions of Semaphore. We will be releasing 5.8.1 in the near future, but that will just be a bug fix release for 5.8.0. It'll have no new features, so I'm not really going to talk about that one at all today. So what I'm going to be talking about instead is the Semaphore roadmap for 5.10 and 5.12. That's covering the next year or so. As always, ease of use is top of our mind, and everything we're doing is done with how easy is this to use in the back of our mind. So in terms of ease of use, we are working on the use of Shackle within Semaphore. Currently, you can use Shackle to create constraints for your models, and violations and warnings are shown within the UI. However, at the moment, it's quite less than user-friendly to create these shackle shapes. So we're improving that method. We're going to make the creation of simple shackle shapes much, much easier through the user interface. And we will also do some improvements for people who want to use their own custom shackle constraints. We are working in the AI realm to see what we can use, how we can use AI to improve models, to help people build models more quickly. And I've got a demonstration of that coming up later, so I'm not going to talk about that much now. We're also going to be talking about extending modeling capabilities. So the first stage of that is to allow Scar's exact match and those other semantic mapping relationships to be used out of the box within Semaphore, both to relate concepts within the Semaphore environment and to relate to concepts outside of the Semaphore environment. And at the same time, we'll be working on performance improvements, trying to make the whole thing faster, and platform modernization, keeping the architecture and user interface up to date with the current standards. AI has been in the news just a little bit over the last year, and we wanted to see how we could use AI to make the model generation easier for the standard user. And so we've been playing around with AI. At the moment, we are using a Azure subscription model. So for the first release of 5.10.0, we would expect people to use the Azure subscription model. Most companies do have these. And that's a good way of ensuring that your data is kept within your realm and there's no leakage across between customers. And also means you can keep a track on costing as well for the query. So within Semaphore 5.10, we will be having AI-driven knowledge model building. Make you faster, make it more user-friendly. It might give you some ideas that you hadn't thought of, and certainly simplifies your life. You won't have to spend quite so much time thinking of what concepts to add, because they'll be presented straight at you. So the process is the user will, through the user interface, request a set of concepts or labels from the generative AI application. These will be presented to the user, and the user will then be able to select whether they are good fits for the model or not. It's always important to have the human in the loop because, as is well known, generative AI does hallucinate. So we're really keen to keep the human in the loop here. So we will be able to create models using the AI tool. So that's starting from a seed concept, add descendant concepts, and also we will be able to enrich the model by adding alternative labels to concepts that exist and adding more concepts as well is an enrichment exercise. So what's this going to look like? So this is a version of the KMM with a AI proxy installed. Here's one I created earlier. Go into our model and let's start building stuff. So let's talk about Bulgarian cuisine. I know nothing about Bulgarian cuisine. So let's try and find out what we can. So let's click on the Narrow Our Concepts button. A little bit of help text pops up, get suggestions. Well, that's a bit of a waste of time, isn't it? So we have the ability to force the AI to give us what we want. So if the AI isn't giving us precisely what we want, then we can give it help text. We can choose what data we send. So at the moment, we send the model name and description along with the classes and the current preferred labels. Alternative labels, broader concepts, and narrow concepts are all added as well. But you can force it into giving into a particular area, and suddenly it's become a lot better. So there we've got a handful of Bulgarian dishes. Well, that's all great, but Musaka's Greek. So that's actually human in the loop. We're going to take out that one. Suddenly, I've got my hierarchy extended with a number of Bulgarian dishes. And we're still playing with the different things that we can do here. So here we're getting a list of ingredients for a kavama, and let's bang them in the subtopics. That is because I have defined within my model the classes of things I'm interested in. So kavama is a dish. Pork for kavama is an ingredient. It's already picked that up and is decorating our model with those with that data. So we're currently working on a similar button to give us alternative labels that should help in the classification process. But all of this is speeding up your model development process. That's just an example of what we can do. So, as I think I've shown quite well, genAI doesn't always give you precisely what you want. So we have the human in the loop to do the basic level filtering. It's there to help the human rather than to override what the human's doing. And so we've got a really snazzy Michelangelo style slide to show the human in the loop. So the human's in control, and so what goes in your model is approved by a human, but they're vastly assisted by the AI builder. Now, I've been talking about this goes into 5.10, and I also mentioned 5.12 earlier. This is because we are changing slightly how we are doing releases. We are generating long-term supported releases that we will support for long-term, a number of the Semaphore versions. So at the moment, the long-term supported release is 5.8. So we will fix bugs, update vulnerabilities in 5.8. We will be playing over the next year or so with Semaphore 5.10, which will be an innovation release. So 5.10.0 is likely to have the AI model builder assistant in it. And there might be other 5.10 versions come later on with early access to other features that we want to make available for people to play with. And eventually, when we are happy with the 5.10 functionality, customers have given feedback. We've used that feedback to make them into a really nice product. We will release the next long-term supported release, which will be 5.12. And then we will fix bugs and vulnerabilities in 5.12 while working on the next iteration release. This gives the customers easier access to early features so we can get feedback in more quickly, so we're more flexible about what these features will look like in the long-term supported releases. Because long-term supported releases are going to be stable, so that there's no need to update your integrations between, say, 5.8.0 and 5.8.1, we'll be running new features into the innovation releases so you can play with them. In terms of where we are now, Semaphore 5.8 is a LTS release, and so we will be releasing 5.8.1, 5.8.2, 5.8.3 as vulnerabilities and bugs are found and fixed. 5.10 will be the next innovation release, and there will again be different numbers of 5.10.0, 5.10.1 as things dictate. So all older versions are currently considered to be sunset. So that's it from me. I'll now hand you over to Philip.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Thank you for that look into the new features that are in the platform and how we're supporting that going forward. Up next is Imran Chowdhury. He's our Chief Architect for AI, Healthcare, and Life Sciences. We're going to be looking at evolving your data architecture for trustworthy genAI. So with that, over to Imran.
Thank you, Keith, for that overview of the panel. It looks really, really interesting. Looking forward to testing it out. So on the AI side, Gartner has said a lot of people are doing AI, generative AI now, and about 55% of people are either piloting or in production, and another 55% are deploying and thinking about new use cases from an AI perspective. A lot of our customers have been asking, how can we use generative AI and drive business growth? What are the opportunities for generative AI? How can we secure our data and use it securely with generative AI? How do we combine that data with generative AI tools? And how important is accuracy for our use cases? What does that mean? That means, since generative AI are probabilistic, what is the level of actual correct answers do you need for your particular use case to work? One of the things that has stuck with me for a while now is almost a year ago, or more than a year ago, actually, I heard this quote from Kathy Wood, and it was an assertion that AI will be ubiquitous and everybody will have access to it, which has been panning out. It is not that expensive to get access to AI systems. You can even use free systems if you want to. But she said that the people that are going to actually succeed are the ones that have private data and know how to use it with generative AI systems. So that's something that we've been focused on a lot since over the past year and a half now. On the use case side, there's a lot of different use cases. The ability to use AI in chatbots for customer support, the ability to look at and review personalized content, the ability to look at and generate code, do natural language queries against your data, generate synthetic data, also potentially use it for managing and mapping your data and creating enriched copies of your data. And the things that you need to think about and the things that Progress can help you with is there are a lot of business benefits with using the Progress data platform. Things like accuracy, the ability to get the right answer, the ability to get an arbitrarily high level of right answers based on the customization of the semantics and the models, because you can find the right pieces of data that you need that the genAI can deliver answers on. The ability to capture subject matter expert knowledge and store that and use that in a repeatable way. The ability to very, very rapidly change what is known to the enterprise to decide what is important, what is not important when you're giving the genAI private data for tasks that it needs to complete. The ability to adhere to and comply with regulations. Our platform really turns a black box into a white box because we can keep track of all of the background information and reference information that is provided to genAI, as well as the answers that come out of it. So from a timeliness perspective also, because we can update our content in real time, we can provide updated data to the genAI systems in real time and have them answer with the most accurate up-to-date data. In fact, some of our customers actually don't want the older data anymore because it is stale and less relevant. From a customization perspective, we can adapt to your enterprise's needs and to your operational context because we have the ability to update our graphs and update what's important semantically to the enterprise. Also, we are very efficient in terms of how we utilize resources and how those resources can be leveraged from a GenAI system perspective, especially in the sense that we have the ability to essentially just create content and create semantics as they are needed by the specific queries that are occurring within your enterprise. Because we offer this faster time to market and this better cost paradigm, we will provide you with a competitive edge. And the customer experiences, because we're providing them with more relevant, more accurate, more secure content, will be much higher than any other platforms. So back to the problem statement. The core problem statement is, how can we improve the trust? How can we get the security right? How do we influence the answers when we're not actually changing the model? And how can we get the relevant answers from these new models? Right, these are the kinds of questions that are really, really important to building out a genAI platform. So we looked at 3 different architectures. One was an out-of-the-box architecture where we have a closed book exam where you just ask the question and get the answer. And, you know, it has a lot of benefits because it's very simple and easy, but it has a lot of problems that exist with GenAI systems, including biases and hallucinations and inaccuracies. The second architecture that we looked at is kind of like an open book exam with the ability to get to the right page. In this case, we're taking your private enterprise data and we're combining it and moving it into MarkLogic and cutting it up into sections because you don't want to feed too much of it to a GenAI system. You just want to feed the exact right context that's important for the question that's being answered or the task that's being delivered. So the first thing you do is you take the user's query and you perform a regular search for the highest relevancy of content. Now that you have those content sections, you can feed that over to the GenAI, and then the GenAI can try to answer the question or do the task based on the context it has. This works reasonably well, but you still have a lot of relevancy and accuracy issues and the like, right? So the next level was to think about bringing semantics into this system. And what we've done here is we use Semaphore to do subject matter expert knowledge capture, governance, fact extraction, and the like, right? So first step is still the same. Now we use the graph that we have generated and created to do categorization and fact extraction of the documents. Then when the user has a question, we can look at the user's question and extract and prioritize tags that represent key concepts. We can also look for all of the synonyms of those concepts. So we get a much richer and better recall of the content that comes back. And then when the content comes back, let's say you have 50 answers that come back at you, which might have 5,000 sentences in them, we can further hone or filter those sentences and just pull out the sentences that are relevant to the semantic knowledge of the enterprise, further tightening up the context that the GenAI has to do its work. Once the work is done and the answer is created, we can also provide referential links back to the original document, so you have sort of a white box thing going. And we can highlight and create hot links back into the semantic concepts, so users can not only check the content, but also the concepts that were used to do the task or provide the answers. So with that in mind, we went ahead and did some very serious testing with ChatGPT. We also tested Claude.ai and got very similar results. In this case, we pretended to be a healthcare insurance company, Acme Insurance, and they have members, providers, and billers, and customer support and representatives that can ask questions of specific documents like, is this condition covered? Is this procedure covered? What condition is treated? Do I need a pre-authorization? Like the normal things you think about when you're dealing with a health insurance plan and thinking about going to the doctor or getting treatment. So we asked a very simple generalized question, what is CGM? And because this was a general knowledge question, all 3 of the architectures were able to answer it just fine. And I'd say about half of our questions were general in nature and were answered reasonably quickly and accurately by all 3 systems. So then we had to start thinking about how to push the system further. So this is one of the ones that push the out-of-the-box system onto the edge, which is list all the billing codes for CGM along with a brief description of those codes. Its first response was, I'm not sure I'm the right entity to begin doing this work. And shall I still fetch a few for you, because it didn't think it would remember all of them, which it didn't. So it just did go ahead and pull out a few, and then asked me, do you want to look for more? And at that point, I'm like, okay, that's enough, thank you. With the other two systems, they didn't hesitate at all. They just started, like the middle one just started spewing out the referential information that was in the document that it had access to. With the semantic coding version, it was a little more refined, and it decided to put out individual sentences because that's the format that we were giving it on the way in. Okay, so then the fun one was, does this make-believe Acme Insurance Company pay for CGM? And I actually have to say the out-of-the-box one did not hallucinate, which was good. It did say, I don't know, please go check with Acme Insurance Company. Sometimes, though, I've seen the answer where it comes back and says, yes. And I'm like, but how do you know? What evidence do you have, right? But with the private data, because it had access to the document that said, yes, Acme covers it, it was able to answer that right away. And with the semantic data, we were now able to get an even more detailed answer. And then we highlighted all of the items here that were semantic concepts. And if the user were to click on the first one, CGM, for example, you would get a graph that went back to Semaphore and let you look at it. So this is overall what we're doing. We're basically having the user's queries come in, and we're using a combination of Semaphore and Mark Logic to do all of the functions that we talked about. And really, the net result is you get improved results, improved trustworthiness, and increased cost savings, because we can do a lot of answer caching and vector caching as well. So these are the kinds of things that are very helpful in creating a system that is based on a platform that is reusable. And you can reuse that same data in multiple use cases. All right, so a little bit about what do we mean by trustworthiness? Well, we're getting you the more accurate answers here because we can find the right data that's related to the answer. And then also with MarkLogic security, you can have document level and element level security. So if the user doesn't have access to a certain piece of content, the AI will not have access to that same content, and security thereby flows through all the way to the AI's answers as well. So a couple key takeaways. If you don't have good quality data, you're just going to have garbage in, garbage out. Hallucination problems exist even if your data is good. What you really need to do is find the exact right content for the answer that needs to be generated or the task that needs to be completed. And MarkLogic and Semaphore really help you do that. All right, that was a real quick overview of how we're using stuff with our platforms with generative AI. And now over to Jim.
Okay, thank you, Imran. That's a great presentation showing the importance of keeping your semantic model and the use of that semantic model like up to date with reflecting the real world, or the world that's important to you, your perspective, your organization's perspective, and model of what you are trying to learn from your genAI solution. So along those lines, I wanted to just take the opportunity to point out all the capabilities that Semaphore already has to keep those models up to date. There's a lot we can do with the APIs, and as part of the RAG solution, it includes this continuous feedback. But Semaphore already has a lot of tools for the subject matter expert, and we represent most of them in terms of these side panels that can call out the other services to help you improve your models. So by models, we mean knowledge models or taxonomies or ontologies or glossaries or thesauri, anything that can be a structured representation of knowledge that's deliberately managed. So we're going to look from there, and this is the kind of the heart of Semaphore, and from there we'll show the different tools that are available. The point being that you have continuous control over the model. Human in the loop is a refrain we keep coming back to. We can use machine methods and AI as much as possible. If we're going to keep the perspective of your information needs, you need to have control over what your model is representing. So in Semaphore, we've handled this ever since its first inception, that we see a model as a living thing. It's continually being updated. And from the initial model design, and that means model that you may be pulling in from some other source or building based on your existing structured information. Either way, you'll be initiating something and then continually updating it. So this idea of continually doing text mining, harvesting terms, making sure the model is performing as you want it to perform. Because as we know, Semaphore is more than just a taxonomy or ontology management tool. The point of Semaphore is to put these models to work downstream in understanding content and driving user experience. So this has to continually go on in order for the models to remain relevant to your business needs and to your content. So the side panel tools, as I mentioned, are there to help you do this. And we're going to look at a few of them, including the lexical resources, translation widget, Wikipedia. These are things that are already available. Some of them built into the product, some are options, including the text analytics side panel. But then we've added some things for 5.8, and that includes the text mining side panel, which is different from text analytics, and the idea of concept usage, which helps you understand the structure of your model. So let's look at those in turn. I'm going to jump over to my Semaphore. Here we have Semaphore. This is Semaphore 5.8. Semaphore has the 3 main modules. We're going to be focusing on the modeling tool, but always keep in mind that the purpose of these models is to be consumed downstream, either through our classification engine or our semantic integration or enhancement service. So let's go into our models. And I have a lot of models going on here. This is my own Semaphore environment, but we're going to focus on a couple for these demonstrations. So we're going to be looking at both the subjects model, just a general topical taxonomy, and we're going to be looking at our geographic locations model. Let's open up geographic locations and go into a task. We won't cover the workflow here, but this is just part of how Semaphore works. We can make changes to a task without affecting the production version of the model. This is a model built from geonames. So speaking of, starting the model from external sources, we have a tool that uses our API to look at geonames and generate a subset of it in a particular hierarchy of cities, countries, and locations. So if we look at a couple examples here, let's just jump to Pennsylvania, for example. This is the state in the United States that I was born in and grew up in. And so we have standard stuff about a model. We've got different alternate labels of different types. We have a hierarchy where the cities exist underneath the states. And so if we can first look at the lexical side panel. So if I pull up the side panel here, I'll close that for a second. We can see the different options. We won't cover comments today, but that allows anybody to make a comment about a term or a concept in the model for later review. And we'll look at a couple of these concept usage ones, but let's pull up the lexical side panel. This is a pretty simple example. Pennsylvania is a state, and it has a lot of different names. Some of them are represented here, but we can see if we look over here, we've got some other ones being suggested. So what we've done here is we've mined a few different internet sources, DBpedia for one, WordNet for another, and then we've applied some machine clustering processes on top of that to generate these groupings of terms. And the idea is, are there any different suggestions that might be good alternate labels? So they're not necessarily synonyms. You can see we call them signpost terms. They're the terms that might point to as evidence for Pennsylvania. So if we're reading different texts. We want to make sure that we're representing Pennsylvania in all the different variations that it might be in that's relevant to our content. So Pennsylvania is known in the Keystone State, that's already there, but we also have things like the Quaker State. It was founded by Quakers, William Penn, so it's the Quaker State, the coal state, big coal town, coal community, some other abbreviations. So I can select these and add them readily to my model. And I can do this for different concepts. If I click on Philadelphia, for example, the largest city in Pennsylvania, it has a famous, the city of brotherly love, it's often called, and other things like that. So I could add these in as well. Philly is how we usually refer to it. Cradle Liberty, of course, that's where the U.S. was founded. So these can all be added. So that's what the lexical side panel is for. As we go further down, they can be a little more esoteric, and it really speaks to the value of the human in the loop, because some of these terms may be quite inappropriate for the model, and so you have to watch out for that. And but that's essentially the basics of the lexical side panel. This is built into Semaphore. It calls out to our own service, so you need to be able to call out to the internet. But it is a very valuable resource. The other side panel I want to go to is the translation side panel. This is also built into Semaphore. It uses our translation service. That's based on Azure's translation service. And my model has several different languages established for it. So I can choose some of these and hit the translate button. And it's going to come back with German variants for the terms that, for the labels that make sense. So City of Brotherly Love, Die Stadt der Brücherlichen Liebe, along those lines. And we can add these as labels. I can review them here, make some changes if necessary, and add the German labels. That's how the translation side panel works. The other one I always like to show is the Wikipedia side panel. This is something we can add for you. It's not built into Semaphore, but it's useful. It just takes the main label and it sends it to Wikipedia. And I think this is just a great example of how you can give your model manager access to a lot of information about a concept, but you may not necessarily need to bring it into the model. But you can also use it as sources for the model. Maybe I want to take the put a note in here, and so I can take text and add it to the model that way, just by dragging it in. So really useful, very simple. The Wikipedia side panel I use all the time when I'm helping clients or developing a demonstration and on a topic that I don't know a lot about. I'll just bring in the Wikipedia information and go from there. So now let's jump back up to the top and talk about the next side panel, which we'll look at, but I wanted to show you how we set that up. The text analytics side panel, which has been in Semaphore for a couple versions, allows you to load a set of documents into your Semaphore environment and use it as a source of additional terminology or concepts that are in relation to the model that you already have, right? So here I've loaded a couple different document sets, and this is just where you would do that. You can load document sets of any size, really. There's not much of a limit to it in terms of just how Semaphore operates. So I have a couple different sources here. So I might want to evaluate my model against different types of content or subjects of content. So what that means, so if I go back into my models, and let's jump to a different model this time. Let's go to from the geographic locations to subjects. This is a general purpose topical vocabulary. You can see it here. And we have a lot of different information about employment, civic life, etc. Let's jump to pay as an example. So I'm going to go, there's a lot of concepts about pay, but I'm going to go directly to the pay concept. And we can see we have some alternate labels, but maybe there's some additional information that we can pull out of our documents that we loaded into that text analytics repository. So you can see one of our options down here is text analytics. Let's select that. And here we can take the labels that we have in our model. You can select which ones we want to use. Let's just take all of them for now. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to send these terms to Semaphore and analyze them against a particular document set. So I'm going to choose these 10K documents because I'm interested in how companies in their official reports to the government talk about how they handle the issues of paying their employees. So when I hit analyze, it's going through and it's taking all the labels from my model and it's sending them. It's making comparisons in terms of proximity to other terms that might be available in my model. So here we can see we have a set of documents that came back, all that have these labels existing in the text. And we're looking at both terms that appear in proximity to the label and terms that overlap with the label. And that's what these different colors means. If we look at this first document expanded here, we can kind of look at this and say, okay, these are terms that appear near my labels from the model, like wages, pay, etc. But I might see some things here that are interesting, like annual bonus opportunity. That sounds like compensation structure. These are the maybe total rewards. These are the types of terms that maybe a business might think about when they're talking about the concept of pay. So these are kind of interesting. And you can see they show up here on the right, and I can edit these if I wanted to, or leave them as they are. And I can add them as a label or as a concept. We can also look at this information in a couple different ways. We can look across the entire document set and say, well, which terms have the highest hit counts? And look at things that way, or look at how the terms overlap with our labels, be paid, area wage, wage levels, things like that. So these can also be added as candidates. And if I wanted to see more about these details, I won't do it now, but if you clicked on the document here, it would launch our document analyzer and show this information in explicit detail down in terms of where these, across the entire document, where these terms are showing up. So just for fun, let's continue to add these as labels. And now they've been added as labels to this particular concept. So that was a quick tour of the text analytics side panel. And what we've done next in version 5.8 is add the text miner side panel. So it's a little different. And it's text miner because we're not just looking for proximity and within documents. We're looking across documents and looking at co-occurrence and figures like that. So we'll stay on pay for now and open up the text mining widget. Now, something that's very important about when you're managing a model that is used downstream to tag content, to indicate what a document is about or what a piece of data should be normalized to or anything like that, it's important to know how you're concepts in your model are being used downstream. So in the simplest form, you could just say, okay, just give me a count of how many documents use the word pay or have been tagged with the term pay. But Semaphore is about so much more than just label matching. We're not just looking for keywords. We're not just looking for strings. We're looking for evidence for things. So we would really want to understand why was pay tagged to content, not just that it was, but the reasons why. And that's what we're seeing here in the text miner side panel on this particular evidence tab. So this is against a repository of documents that we've loaded in again, and it's been processed and added to a database, added to MarkLogic database in this case, because we're partners with MarkLogic as another Progress Semaphore Progress software. So we're seeing for the concept of pay, we're seeing these are the types of terms from the labels. So this is all the evidence, which could be narrower terms, it could be alternate labels that are occurring in text, and that's why pay is getting tagged. The term pay appears a lot, but also things like salaries and payroll and statutory sick pay, which is a UK concept. And notice that things like pay, paid is not a piece of evidence here, but I think it's neat to point out that it's a variant. It's a lexical variant of pay. So is paying. It's a variant on pay. So that's why these are being highlighted as evidence, even though they're not explicitly labels in the content. And if I clicked on any of these, I could actually see the documents that these are related to. And if I launched one of these, we could see more detail about how it found this evidence and more information from the document itself. But I also want to point out a couple other tabs here. The co-occurrence tab. So this is looking across the entire repository, and I can say, well, for example, it's comparing two things. So what term am I looking for? So if we look for this concept of pay, well, what other concepts were tagged in the same document? So if I just leave this as looking for, other subjects that occur in the same document, I can see this is pretty interesting. I've got terms like employment terms and conditions. These look like they might be, maybe not synonyms, but they might be related. So if I wanted to take these into my model, I could, for example, pull up the related thing, and maybe I want to pull employee, maybe jobs and careers might be important, and I can add that as a related concept. But I can also not just look at other concepts that were tagged, but I can look at text mining concepts, text mining terms. So as part of the process for setting this up, we've also mined, similar to the text analytics side panel, we've mined this information for noun phrases. So now I'm looking for the term pay occurring in, co-occurring with particular noun phrases. So this is really interesting. So I've got, these are terms that are not in my model, or not necessarily in my model, but they are co-occurring with the concept of pay. So here we can, so these are a new terminology. So I can add these as either labels just by dragging them into my model, or perhaps I want to add them as new concepts. Well, I can do that as well. Let's pick like part-time, which might be related to pay, but but as a new concept. So here I can drag it right over to my hierarchy. Flexible working, maybe that's where it belongs. Hours of work. I'll add it as a concept there under hours of work. So these are all things I'm doing by analyzing a particular document repository that I've loaded into Semaphore. And that document repository can be of any size, and it's stored in MarkLogic. So actually all this data that we're looking at that's generating these results are stored in a MarkLogic database, which is available to you to do any type of analytics you want. I mean, that's an important point to make about all of this. We're really not looking at any new fundamental semaphore technology. Text mining, analysis of data generated by Semaphore has been available in Semaphore basically as long as it's existed. What we're doing is adding some of these capabilities into the model to kind of join up the analysis of documents by the classification server to the model itself. And so there's my whirlwind tour of some newer side panels and some that have been around for a while, but I thought it was worth pointing out. So the value of the side panels is, again, it's just put in control of the person managing the model a lot of additional information that keeps your model in tune with your content, with your business needs, and aligned with your customers and downstream systems. And with that, let's turn it back over to Phil and to pick up some information about the ideation portal and Q&A. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Jim. Great to see a live demo of some of the new features that are in the platform. Up next, I'm going to be talking to you about our ideation portal. So have you ever had an idea for a feature that you would love to see in Semaphore? It's sort of those conversations at the water cooler. Have you said, oh, that would be really good to have, and then you walk out the room and then suddenly you forget it? Well, what we've designed here is a portal where you can submit new ideas for enhancements, for new features that you want to see in the platform. And then anyone can submit these ideas and then people can vote on them. And then these will be reviewed and prioritized by our product management team. You can go on the link just there to progressdataplatform.ideas.aha.io/ideas. How to use the ideation platform, you're going to need to set up a Progress ID. And when you set up your Progress ID, it'll ask you what you're interested in or what you would like to follow. And so if you click Semaphore, and if you're interested in other technologies, then feel free to do so. With that Progress ID, you're able to go into the ideas platform. You're able to see the new ideas that are coming out from the community, as well as being able to, if you click this green button here, submit a new idea. So you can decide on what the idea is going to be, give it a title, give it some short text, and then people can then vote on those ideas. And you can also subscribe to those ideas that you find interesting, that you want to know whether our colleagues are going to be looking at them in the future. So yeah, simply put, the idea of short sentence of your idea, and then add in the details there, and then select the category, and it will come up with a few different categories and semaphores on there as well. And then just simply share your idea. And so here you can see some of the most popular ideas that we have on our data platform ideas. And like I say, this can be for MarkLogic or Progress, or a combination of two that you'd like to see. We've got one here that seems quite popular. You can tell I think it's quite popular because I voted for it. It's in green, and it's a documentation chatbot. This person said would like a chatbot trained on all the documentation, docs from the customer portal, and SEM functions, Java, hopefully Python someday, repositories for developer documentation. So essentially like a GenAI chatbot for the documentation that we've got, that you can ask natural language questions to and find the answers that you like. And as you can see, I'm subscribed to this, so I'll get notifications on when it changes. We've already moved this to under review, and we've got a team of people already looking at this idea. And so we just wanted to show you the progression of these things. But if you've got your own ideas, if you've got your own features that you would like to see, or if you've got common things that you're always doing that you think could be built into the platform, then please do raise some new suggestions. So with that, let's look at the next events that are coming up. Like I say, we're running these quarterly at the moment, but again, if you want to see these more frequently, then please do let us know. Those are the QR codes to register for our next event in August, as well as the upcoming one in October. we've got a request for a bit of your help. If you really do like Semaphore, if it's adding value to your business and you're able to address some new use cases or solve some business challenges, then we'd love to hear from you in reviews. So we've got 2 review platforms that we're using, the Infotech software reviews as well as the Gartner reviews. And if you've got some time, we would love for you to fill out a review. It's great to hear back from the community about how we're doing. And again, you could put in there some of the stuff that you'd like to see in the future as well. It's a great way to let others know that the platform is working for you, but also to influence future decisions that we might have around the technology. So with all of that done, we've gone through a lot today. I hope you've enjoyed it. But now let's go to the Q&A and join the guys for what should be quite an interesting conversation. Right, I think my camera's working. There we go. Perfect. Right, hi there, Imran, Jim. Perfect. Look at that. Everybody coming on board. And there's Keith. There we go. Look at that. Perfect. Even the progress green as well. Look at that. All right. Well, thank you very much for all of your questions today, and then thanks to our presenters for their presentations. Already got a few that I wanted to cover off. I know that a couple of guys have answered some of the questions, but I just wanted to get this on for the on-demand views. So we talked about version 5.10. For Semaphore and when that's going to be released, and we're hoping that that's going to be the innovation release of 5.10.0 in the next couple of months. So keep an eye out for that. We might even be able to show you more in our next community event in August. And then it says, will it be possible to enable or disable the genAI feature at the KMM level? That was answered by Keith again, prolific in the chat there. But it says in the initial release, the AI will be built in. The AI engine is configured at the studio level. So if you don't configure it there, then there'll be no AI. So it's just up to you whether you want that in your technology. So let's get to some of the other questions now that we haven't had a chance to answer. First one up, I think, is to Keith by the looks of things. So can you use the AI model builder to build relationships between the concepts?
Well, at the moment, when you add narrow concepts, clearly you're creating broader narrow relationships. But I assume you mean about the related associative relationships. At the moment, not, but we are working on it. And we found that getting genAI to give the right answers for associative relationships is actually a lot harder than for subconcepts. So we're tuning the queries so we can ask the correct questions so that we get those back. But we're aiming for the 5.10.0, we're aiming to have all labels and narrower concepts with the related ones coming in later.
Yeah, that's great. I think at the moment it's sort of like it can accelerate the building of the models and things like that. But hopefully those more advanced features will be coming into that. So yeah, Keith, that's great to hear. Imran, is MarkLogic a requirement for the RAG solution that we have built?
So I would say no, it's not really a requirement, but we bring so many benefits to the table that it should strongly be considered as the main storage component of the RAG solution. And in fact, in future webinars, we'll be talking about how to reduce your vector embedding costs by 5 to 10x, how to reduce your generation costs by caching all of your frequently asked questions or frequently requested tasks, those sorts of things. And these are things that are much harder to do in other platforms.
Yeah, and I think as well is with MarkLogic, you've got that model independence piece, which I think's really key as well, as you can see just this week with the new release of GTP 4.0. and the new tools that have come out from Google. And I think Microsoft is the end of next week. There's going to be new stuff that's coming out in these models all the time. So that model independence and being able to flip models agilely, I think is going to be really key as well. So how can we measure the value of the solution that we provide then? What's the best way to measure that?
So measuring is a little bit of a difficult task. Testing for the relevancy of the returned documents, basically understanding your precision and recall is something that people do. Another thing people do is run side-by-side comparisons. So A/B testing, is this working better than that? Another thing people do is use a genAI to evaluate another genAI's answers and provide sort of thumbs up, thumbs down type of capabilities. So there's a lot of different ways to do the testing, and I think all of the tools need to be employed because determining whether an answer is correct or not at scale is a pretty hard thing to do.
Yeah. And how is the solution compared to like just a vector database in and of itself?
So I came across an interesting study a couple of months ago that basically says the combination of regular search with vector relevancy does a better job than vectors alone. So that's an interesting data point. And then in the past, I've run POCs and tests against content retrieval based on natural language, and the ability to hit arbitrarily high levels of recall and precision is totally doable, but you need things like graphs to do it, semantic graphs in particular, and so the ability for hitting those high levels of relevancy and precision will make or break a project. That'll mean the difference between succeeding and failing, actually.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. It's also interesting when I speak to customers from the other side of my role, I've had customers build the solution independently of us, and they've come up with the same architecture, which is really interesting. I think that demonstrates that path of least resistance, but also path to getting value from the system quickly.
Just a real quick sort of additional information on that is when we first sort of came up with these three architectures that I talked about in the talk, just literally 2 days later, I saw Harvard doing the exact same thing, and I'm like, oh, good, I'm on the right path. Right? This is before it had a name, retrieval augmented generation, even.
Yeah, it's but it's been a rapid development path in that area, and like I say, there's a lot of new things coming forth. We've just got time for one more question by the looks of things. We're just overrunning slightly, but I think it's Jim on this one, and can you suggest a tool for alternative labels to be used outside of KMM?
Yeah, the tool that we saw, the two text analytics tools that could be used for suggesting alternate labels, they are built to be used inside of the model. But I will point out that it's simply generating data that could be analyzed in any context, especially the newer text mining panel. It's using some sophisticated classification rules to produce results that show the co-occurrences and the evidence for why a concept was termed, and then the co-occurrence of things that occur with the evidence terms and things like that. All the things we were seeing, but it's all in a Marklogic database, so it can be you can do even further analysis than what we presented in the side panel just by using that data. And the other point I'll make along those lines is Semaphore can always generate this data. I mean, you can write your rules, use our facts framework to generate very smart text mining processes, and then generate as much data as you need across your corpus, and then or generate the data while you're classifying your documents. Generate additional data about those documents and then use that as part of your analysis. The genAI solution that Imran walked through is employing some of that, where as people are asking questions, as content is being used to inform the AI, that's all data. That's all information that you can use to enrich your model. So we're always looking for ways to build that kind of loop into the product, but just to make the point that the data can be generated by you right now with Semaphore, and you can use that data in whatever solution or means that you want.
Yeah, those side panels are really good, and it's really interesting to see what's coming down the pipeline as well, with the work that Keith and the development team are doing there. I think there's going to be some good stuff in that innovation release later on in the year. So yeah, please do keep an eye out for that. Once again, thank you very much. We'll wrap it up here because I think we're just running over by about 5 minutes, which is pretty good for us. It's not too bad. But thank you very much for putting these presentations together. They're really interesting. Really appreciate the time that you've put into these. If you have an idea, please do use that ideation portal. We really do look at these and review them, and try to figure out, if we can, how to get these into the product. And it's a great resource, and it's a great way to engage with the product management team and the team of people that are actively developing the platform that you've chosen to do this in your business with. So yeah, please do use that ideas portal. Join us again for our next session. That'll be in August. I'll put the links in the chat. All of those links will be together with the on-demand video. But gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today. And thank you very much to all of the audience that joined us as well. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.